So Britain has come into the spotlight once again, and this time it's not for a very good reason. In fact, it's a very shameful reason as to why this whole nation is now exploding. Not just the nation itself, I believe a lot of people around the world are being horrified by what exactly happened to those poor girls. And the atrocities that has been committed by Pakistani Muslim men, again, let's be honest about it. These are Pakistani Muslim men who committed sheer atrocities against this white British girl because they were vulnerable and of course they were dirty. They treat them as white trash only because they were white. They were non-Muslims. That was the reason. There is no need for any kind of mental gymnastics to be played when we can see the evidence right in front of our eyes. And whoever is trying to say that this is about all men, about all community, they're actually lying to you. Again, we know how Islam really works in the society. It works with lying. It portrays itself as victim to gain sympathy, to abuse these little girls. Some of the atrocities that has been committed, I'm talking about the grooming scandal. Again, about 19,000 girls being raped every year. Hundreds of thousands of total cases. Hundreds of thousands. Like if you tally up, if you add up the numbers, for about 40 years, this is about hundreds of thousands of girls. These are young girls, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old girls. In one night, in some cases, they were raped. Like there was a report just a couple of days ago. A girl was raped in a graveyard and then she was raped by several other men on the street. And the next day, the police came and shoved down a pill inside her mouth. In one night, in some cases, these girls were raped by 10 different men or 20 different men in one night. Of course, they were drugged. They were cocaine, they were heroin. Like some of these girls actually died from this overdose of the drugs. And if they haven't died out of the overdose, guess what else they have to face? They were burned alive. In some cases, the mother, the victim, and the victim's sister, they were burned alive. They were murdered in cold blood. In one case, this 11-year-old girl, 11 or 12-year-old girl, her anal cavity was extended. She was prepared for gang anal rape. She was prepared. Her anal cavity was extended. Think about the sickness of these people. Hot wax have been poured onto their skin. Again, we are talking about 11 or 12-year-old girls. They have been whipped. A ball was placed inside her mouth to muffle her cries, her screams, so that nobody can hear it. Because she was crying so loud, to muffle her scream, she was gagged. Panties have been shoved down the throat. Some of these girls have been raped by 20 different men on a single night. 10 or 20 different men on a single night. How many times have been raped at once? We don't know. In some cases, 4 men was raping her at once. The case that I just mentioned, the gang anal rape. She was prepared for the gang anal rape. At one point, she was raped by 4 different men. In some cases, these girls were bleeding for days. They were locked up in the hotel rooms without water or electricity, and they were bleeding for days. In some cases, their bodies were dismembered. They were put into a meat grinder and chopped up, minced into kebab meat, and sold as kebabs. This is how as many as 19,000 of these girls have been raped every year for about 40 years. Not only that they have been abandoned, but guess what else the administration, the so-called the woke, liberal, politically correct media, the judiciary, the system, what they did, they paid hundreds of thousands because there was an error made in the judgment. The case that I just mentioned, Caroline Downs, I believe, this girl was dismembered and her body was put into a meat grinder, and the abuser was paid hundreds of thousands of pounds as compensation for making an error. Her abuser was paid, not the victim. Her abuser was paid in hundreds of thousands of dollars because the judge made an error. The girls that have been abused and in hundreds of thousands, and some of these abusers are still in the UK. They're some of the taxi drivers, like, of course, they're taxi drivers. That means they haven't paid any taxes in their life. And most likely that they, dodge the welfare system. They collect the dole money to buy the house. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're still in the UK. And, the most sad part of all of these things is the sheer denial. First of all, a lot of people who failed these girls, they have been labeled as child prostitute, this and that. Not only that these girls have been failed by the entire system, but they have been left to be raped. They have been left to be abused. In some cases, I believe some of these girls have been raped for thousands of times. Still, they had their cases have not been heard. Their cases have been put aside because British people doesn't want to be called racist. So this time unfortunately it was those British girls, but these are not one-off case. There are many such cases exist in history. Even if you look at October the 7th, I'm talking about just a couple of months ago, what these people have done. Some of these girls, their breasts are chopped off. They're shredded into pieces. They have been knifed like as if they're shredding those bodies. And while they were, butchering these girls, they were giggling. They were, their elation, they were excited. They were joyous. They were boisterous. They were celebrating. You saw what they have done. Grabbing the girls by the hair, dragging them into Gaza, and then some of these dead bodies, these are dead women, they're spat on, they're stomped on, they're chanted around, Allahu Akbar, because this is a victory, obviously. These dead bodies, they were chanted around by scores of men. These are not just one or two people, scores of men. In 2001, in Bangladesh, in one night, 80 women have been raped, aged between 9 and 70. 9 and 70. A 70-year-old woman. Like my mom is just over 70-year-old. But when I think about a 70-year-old, it reminds me of my own mom. If a girl is raped, okay, it is a sickness, but there can be some justification. She is beautiful, she is, sexually appealing. But a 70-year-old woman, can you believe what kind of sickness these people has? This is the failure of secularism. These are the casualties. These little girls, these 11, 12-year-old girls, they're the casualty of secularism. This is the disease that democracy have allowed. What is democracy? Is cultural communism. All cultures are equal. Democracy has allowed this disease to grow, to spread, this virus to spread. These are the casualties of secularism. And whoever tried to justify these kind of atrocities, they deserve no respect. Not at all. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.